You're listening to The Crunch with Cam Slater, right here on RCR, Reality Check Radio.
Rachel Stewart is a falconer, protector of rivers, climate change warrior, opinionated troublemaker, cancelled lesbian, and a staunch defender of women's rights. We're going to take a look at the various campaigns and get her opinion of the winners, the losers, and discuss where to from here. She joins me now. Welcome to The Crunch. After I interviewed you on breakfast, I thought it'd be fantastic to have you back on, and let's do a post-mortem of what I think is a pretty exciting election.
Yes. Oh, it was like I'm just still coming down, and I'm sure you are too. It was a once-in-a-lifetime election. I don't think we'll see another one quite like that for a while.
Yeah, I mean, it's huge if you look at the numbers. I mean, Labor has lost half of their electorates. You know, some of those they were only going to have them temporarily, but it's a massive swing. They've lost nearly 50% of their vote. Everyone talks about 1990 being a huge election. The swing in the 1990 election was 12%. The swing in this election is closer to 50%.
Yeah,
and it's only because of the vagaries of MMP that they're going to have, 33 MPs when they really should have 16. But yeah, yep. It was a bloodbath. Don't think you can describe it any other way. And Labor, I think, had misread the feel of the electorate. What do you think about that?
Oh, without a doubt. But, probably misread it less than the media did. I've been pretty surprised to see some of the comments from Tova O'Brien, Paula Penfold. I mean, Tova O'Brien made some comment along the lines of, who could, hand on heart, stand by the grave of a dearly departed loved one and say that they saw this coming?
Yeah, well, I can.
I think I can, but I just don't think the people in the bubble did, and it's been quite incredible to watch. But I also notice it's day 2 since the election, day 3 since the election. They're starting to walk some of this stuff back. But I've never seen a fourth estate so ridiculously out of touch.
No, they're bent.
Yeah, well, yeah, they are bent.
They're a lock for the left and the hard left, most of them. We've got surveys of journalists. They've told us the truth in their surveys. They've told us that 78% of them are left-wing or very left-wing. But you're right. I mean, how could Tova O'Brien even say that? But the most bizarre one was Dita DeBoni from NBR.
Oh, yes.
Quite crazy, quite defamatory, actually, in some of the statements she was making, saying there was big amounts of foreign money that bought this election.
I watched it. I couldn't quite believe it. I thought, wow, man, you've been drinking something in that green room. But she was on the verge of tears. I mean, This was a journalist that works for NBR. She's such a left-wing shill that I'm amazed she does work for NBR. I can't kind of figure that one out. But it was quite embarrassing to watch, and I wonder if she's going to look back on that and think, so they're living in bubbles, these people, and hers was defamatory. To think that there's some connection between the money donated to the particular party and an election win is a bit of I don't think anyone thinks about that when they're voting. It doesn't take lots of money to be really good at social media, which National was. It doesn't take a lot of money to just, the electorate wanted change. That's it. Bottom line.
On election night, Morris Williamson was doing some stuff for Reality Check Radio for our webinar, and he made the comment that Labor lost Auckland badly, and he couldn't work it out. And I said, well, Morris, you were overseas at the time when that happened, so you actually don't understand what went on here, where we were locked down, we were locked up for months and months on end. And it was all designed to push the vaccines as hard as they could on everybody, especially in Auckland, where the numbers were a little bit behind the rest of the country. And for those 3 or 4 months that they kept us locked down in 2021, that was the beginning of the end for the government, particularly in Auckland. And you just have to walk around, I live in Takapuna, so you walk around there, the shops there's still empty shops.
Yes.
Small business was hollowed out and destroyed by this government because of their lockdowns, and it was also unnecessary.
Yes, it was. I totally agree. The mandates were a terrible idea. The lies that have come out, the vaccine exemptions for the Ministry of Health, 11,005.
Yeah.
I don't know what they think we were doing when we were all locked down. I mean, I don't live in Auckland, but we certainly watched you guys and thought, wow, how long can they stand? I mean, yes, we got locked down, but you had, how many weeks was it? Something like 17 or?
It was like 3 months.
Was it?
3 or 4 months. It was a long time, and it dragged. To be fair, I wasn't the kind of person to be locked down. I was out driving around, going and having lunch with my mates. They talked about bubbles. Well, my bubble would have been hundreds of people.
But I hear you.
Yeah.
But
that's what people did because it was ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous.
It was inhuman. It was inhuman, and they paid the price. And you just wonder why they did it when the rest of the world was not carrying on like we were. You have to wonder to yourself why.
Well, I think they just got drunk on power. I think they got a kick out of stomping on our rights. And if you look at the gaslighting that's gone on since, Christopher Hipkins saying that no one was forced to take the vaccine. Well, that was just a lie.
Yeah, he just lost about 10,000 votes right there.
Yeah, and then in the last debate, they said, "Is there anything you do different?" And he said, "Oh, I think I would have done MIQ differently."
Oh.
Well, Morris Williamson explained that this on Monday morning on the political panel with me and Paul Brennan. He said, I actually wrote a program that would allow MIQ to be done very quickly, and I was told, go away. We don't want your code. We're going to do what we're going to do. So I don't think he actually would have done it differently. I mean, and that's what everybody forgets. Chris Hipkins was the minister in charge of education, and look at our education statistics. He was the minister of police for a while. Look at our crime statistics. And he was the COVID minister. And now he's gaslighting us thinking to say that, well, it wasn't him. Well, that's bullshit.
He was brutal, actually, in all of those roles. He was far more brutal as having those portfolios than he was as Prime Minister. So I didn't forget, and I'm sure most people didn't.
No,
well, they didn't.
And we rinsed them. And I had a chat with Winston on election night. I had my interview, and then after that, I asked him a couple more questions, off the record. It was an interesting chat, and I have the distinct impression that he has some unfinished business with some utu for the Labour Party. He was quite strident and quite strong in what he was saying, and he sees the pathway for that is this COVID inquiry, because he believes that the truth will come out. And when the truth comes out, he doesn't believe Labour will get in for at least 10 to 12 years.
Yeah, and I agree. In fact, I think even now, without that COVID inquiry, they'd be lucky to get in another 10 or 12 years. This is the end of the Labour Party for quite a long time, and I think it's thoroughly deserved.
Yeah, I saw an article that Chris Trotter wrote saying, what do they even stand for anymore? They certainly don't seem to stand for the working class.
No, that for me was one of the biggest issues. They have left them behind to such an unbelievable extent that, just like the Democrats in America, no wonder Trump does so well. When you leave the working class behind, you've kind of the people that keep the country running, the people that have backed you for decades, then you're really dicing with death. And I don't even think that was a thing that they were really cognizant of doing. They just went ahead and looked after the managerial elites and the wokies and the middle class, and that's cost them. And they're going to have a real big think about that. The working class have now pretty much either gone to Winston or National. National probably obviously more because suddenly they're there for the working class in a way that Labor wasn't.
And it's huge, the change. I mean, we've seen it in the United States, and so we shouldn't have been surprised to see it happen here.
No.
And but it looked like a real surprise, mainly to the media and to Labor. The Greens, of course, think that they've done a fantastic campaign.
Yeah.
They don't actually realise that probably half of their support this election is because Labor was so crap. Yeah. And so the hard left voted for the Greens, and that'll be a fleeting high point, I think, in the Greens.
Yes, because they'll stuff it up somewhere along the line too. And James Shaw I believe, will be gone. He won't get rolled. He's just going to leave at some point soon. That's pretty clear to me. I don't know what you think, but he's off.
Well, Matt McCartan had an interesting point of view. He said that with winning 3 electorate seats, that will be permanent. He doesn't believe that Labor will win those back or National will win those back.
Right.
And he believes that when you've got an electorate seat, you lose the crazy because there are constituents who will shout at you if you do anything crazy, and they will become then a calming influence on the Greens. Now, that remains to be seen.
Yes.
I don't actually believe it because I think they're all crazy.
Yes.
I
do too.
And, here's the funny thing, Rachel. You're a hunter, a farmer. You live in rural New Zealand. I'm a hunter. We should be green voters, really. For the environment. You've fought federated farmers and dairying and all of these sorts of things around the environment. Your environmental credentials are impeccable.
Yeah,
we should be natural green voters, but we just don't fit into that. I've had this discussion with James Shaw, and he just laughed at me, and I said, "Well, why not? Why won't you appeal to the middle New Zealand instead of the hard left? You get more votes."
I often reflect on this, and a lot of people over these have assumed that I'm a Green supporter. Never voted for them. Never will in this incarnation. But I'm a great believer in fresh water, and I do worry about dairying's impact on that. But a few years ago, I decided to just pull my head in and shut up about it, because I'd done my dash, I'd raised the issues. I think there is too much dairying in New Zealand, and I think there's still a lot of work to do. But what I realised as the world is spiralling in a way that we've never really seen before is that the Green Party is not the portal that I want to walk through to make those things happen. But second of all, picking on farmers at a time with COVID and all of that was something I had to stop doing. And also they're my tribe, in the end, they're my tribe. And some of them are greener than anybody that I know living in downtown Auckland or downtown Palmerston North or Whanganui. So that wasn't the vehicle for me, and it's still not the vehicle for me. And I think National's policies on freshwater aren't too bad. I've had a bit of a look at them in the last day or so.
Yeah.
I've changed on that score. I think when times are tough, you've got to keep your country going, and that means supporting whatever makes money. And unfortunately, that is dairying, or fortunately.
I mean, it's the one thing we've got to always fall back on in New Zealand, even when times are tough. The world needs to eat. And they need our products that we make the finest products that come off the farm in the world.
Yes.
But, there are greater things that we need to also look at. And our manufacturing base in New Zealand has been hollowed out by 30 years plus of neoliberalism.
Yes.
And globalism hasn't helped us one little bit in that point. And, whilst you think you should be a Green voter and you can't bring yourself to be that. I used to be a National supporter, but I can't bring myself to support National anymore because they're globalist in their outlook in every regard.
Absolutely. And when these parties are not using certain terms like, I don't know, WHO, WEF, you just think to yourself, Winston was doing that, so I kind of gravitated there at least. I mean, the world has changed. Right?
Oh, yeah.
But these parties haven't really changed with it. And so Winston was a good option for a lot of people. And that's where I felt more at home this election because, like he said in the interview with you, we need a watchdog, and I don't know a better pit bull watchdog than Winston. So, we needed that. I'm so glad he's there. I'm so glad this has worked. He's going to be, and I can't see that being any different. I think when the specials come in, Labor's going to get a couple more probably, but National might lose a couple. But they're going to have to be talking to him. We know that, and I think that this is good.
Absolutely, they're going to talk to him. I was sitting with him on a Saturday night, and everyone around was losing their stuff, and he was sitting there with a big grin on his face. And we went outside and had a cigar and a chat. And he said, "You watch, Cam. You watch these numbers, right? Luxon's come out. He's on nearly 41%. He's claimed victory. You watch those numbers. They're going to drop down into the 38s by the end of the night." And we sat there and we watched it. We recycled it, and I was saying, "You called it, Winston." He says, "I'll make sure my phone's off. I'm going to wait till they have to call me." And, we saw all of the grandstanding on Saturday night, and then we started to see the walking back on Sunday. And then on Monday, it looks like Chris Bishop and some of the brains trust of the National Party woke up and thought, we better get a calculator here and actually start doing some arithmetic.
Yeah, exactly.
And then panic set in. And, I know that from the back channels, from what I'm hearing, they're sitting there thinking, okay, we're not going to get there with Just National and ACT. We are going to lose at least one seat. The Maori Party looks like they're going to pick up another 2 seats and create an overhang, and 61 out of 123 ain't enough.
Yeah.
And so all of a sudden, Winston once again is in the driving seat, and I hope he drives a very hard bargain, and I hope he does get that COVID inquiry.
So do I. And he's I got to say, and I mean, I'm sure you agree, he taught them a salutary lesson in how to do politics. He taught them about they should take a leaf out of that man's book about how to campaign. His ads were fantastic. The Rudyard Kipling poem was
brilliant.
Dynamite.
Brilliant.
It just played into everything I wanted to hear. It was just fantastic. He showed them how to do it. Now people say, he's a populist. So that's how you win elections, man. That's how you do it.
Exactly.
So I'm very happy that Winston's there. He was gracious on the night. He made the right comments. Christopher Luxon was gracious in return, to be fair.
Yep.
Luxon does seem to me, to my eye, to be, it's a long way to go, but he seems fairly sensible and reasonably kind. And I hate using the word kind because we all know you used to use that.
We hate that, don't we? Yeah.
We hate that word. Sorry, he seems very warm in a way. So I think it's going to be an interesting 3 years for sure. And I'm so glad Winston's there. I couldn't sleep for being overjoyed about that result.
I mean, coming back from getting bundled out in 2020, this is the second time he's come back. It's just incredible, really, when you think about it.
Yes, like he said, they've done the impossible.
But he was helped by stupidity from first of all the ACT Party, and then the Labour Party attacking him. And then finally, Chris Bishop having a panicked moment the Monday before the election, talking about second elections and nonsense like that.
Yeah. It was terrible.
Who else had a good campaign, do you think?
Well, I think individuals had some good campaigns. Well, National pretty much had what National did?
I can't say they did because
I don't.
This was the worst government ever, and they couldn't get over 40%.
Yeah, pretty well. What did it end up on?
38 something, but it'll come back a little bit on that.
Yeah.
But I mean, John Key was consistently over 40%.
Yeah, he was. Yeah. So they're not. So the electorate's changing. I will say that they had a safe, except for the brain farting of the second election stuff, which was clearly undemocratic and just a dumb thing to say.
Yeah.
But I think that what they did quite well was just not talk about lots of things and keep their head down. I mean, that was evident when something dear to my own heart, when Luxon was asked about, men and women's toilets, and he said, "What? You're joking? This is an election issue." Well, A, he doesn't realise that it bloody well is, and B, he just wasn't going to go anywhere near anything contentious. He kind of just kept his head down, knowing that he could win that way. So I guess in that sense they had a good campaign. But individuals...
Yeah. It was small target stuff, wasn't it? Make yourself a small target. make a pitch to the electorate that you'll be just like Labor but more efficient. And don't scare the horses, which is how John Key got elected in 2008.
Yeah. So yes, you're right. It wasn't a great. Anyone else? Well,
I think the Maori Party, Te Pāti Maori, had a great campaign because we didn't see it, right? No, we didn't see it because we're in the general. We're looking at the global perspective for New Zealand, right? They had a very targeted campaign to get rid of Labor out of the Maori electorates. And you have to say it was successful. They're sitting on 4. They think they're going to get 6.
Yeah.
And I think they'll get 5. 6 might be a push, but you never know. But, talking with Matt McCudden, he thinks they're going to get those other 2.
Does he?
And that will take out Kelvin Davis, although he'll still be on the list, but he won't have the mana of having an electorate. And it'll take out Pene Henare as well. That's a famous name, that surname.
Yes, it is.
And if he
like Mahuta is a very famous name.
Exactly. I mean, taking out Nanaia Mahuta, the architect of the co-governance divisive policies that they brought in, taken out by the Maori Party.
Yeah.
So you have to say they had a good campaign.
I was disappointed with the coverage of Hana. Is it Hana? Who beat Mahuta. I was disappointed in that very weird stuff about, the man going to the house and he got a
strange.
That was very strange. And I didn't enjoy that. And I felt that was a complete ploy. It just felt that way. There weren't enough details. So that disappointed me. But, look, it seems to have worked. But they did run a good campaign.
Yeah, I mean, that's an interesting one that you raised because I suspect, even though they tried to blame the National Party, I suspect it was actually Labor people that were harassing her.
Yeah.
Just because I know that's how the way they play.
Yeah.
You know, and it was rather shabby the way the Te Pāti Maori put that out into the media.
Yes, it was. It was a little bit dirty.
Yeah. But has anybody else had a good campaign? I don't think they have. I don't think David Seymour had a good campaign.
Oh, terrible. I was watching him a lot and I kept thinking something's happened to you. There's something going on. And he just kept, and I was at the hairdressers this morning, as you do, and I was talking to the girls there and you find some interesting things out at the hairdressers. And
always.
And they were saying, that David Seymour's a bit of actually, dick was the word they used. And I said, he had a terrible campaign. They said, he just shot himself in the foot every 5 seconds. And, of course, the worst thing he did, and he looked terrible. He just looked down and dowdy and not right. But the worst thing he did was saying he wouldn't work with Winston. What a dumb move that was, and a rookie's mistake, really, early on.
I mean, how do you think he's feeling right now? Because, in the last leaders' debate that he was in with Winston, he was asked, do you trust Winston Peters? And he said no. Very quickly, he said no.
Yeah.
But everyone who's ever worked with Winston Peters, Jim Bolger, John Key even said you can trust Winston Peters. Matt McCudden says you can trust Winston Peters. Mm-hmm. Helen Clark said you can trust Winston Peters. But here's David Seymour, who's never worked with Winston in his life, has spent his entire parliamentary career attacking and slaying and sledging Winston Peters. Here he is saying no. And the voters have said, well, David, you might not trust him, but you're going to have to work with him.
Yep. And that was beautiful. And that's why people used it as a protest vote. And it was there for the taking. And I think David Seymour is dedicated to being, a prime minister or a deputy prime minister. He's dedicated to that. And that's probably what he's going to be, deputy prime minister. But in the process, you just don't do what he did. It was just stupid. But he wants to be in power and have lots of power. And that's why I wanted Winston there.
It's unbecoming when you see politicians so obviously seeking power like that. It's unedifying, and it clearly shows that they're in politics for themselves and not for us.
Yes. And speaking of that, did you notice the clip of Dan Rosewarne, who I'd never heard of before, but now I'm never going to forget the guy. The Koru Club membership.
He says, you're out of power when you go to the Koru Club and your membership's been cancelled.
You go from champagne to lemonade. Oh, what a stupid thing to say. I mean, I doubt that overnight their Koru Club was cancelled, but whatever. I don't even know. But it was just a stupid thing to say.
They're pretty efficient, the people
Are they? Yeah.
in Parliament.
And
you're in, you're not.
Yeah, see, yeah. And Jan Tinetti she's still on the list, of course, but I consider her one of the worst MPs I've ever seen, and so not capable. It's unbelievable. She's incapable, really. Standing there, coming through the Tauranga airport saying, it's a relief.
Yeah.
It's a relief. Well, that's how much you care about education, sister.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, that's the trouble when you get union hacks into positions rather than people with any experience. But you used a word there, incapable. That is probably the best word to describe the Ardern-Hipkins government, isn't it? Incapable.
Yeah.
They were incapable of building houses.
Yes.
They were incapable of planting trees. They were incapable of solving child poverty. They were incapable of building even 1 millimetre of rail track to Auckland Airport.
Mm-hmm.
These were all of their huge policies that they announced in 2017 that they were going to deliver. It was going to be transformative. It was all just bumper sticker slogans, wasn't it?
Yes, it was. And, you know, in a normal world, which we're not in, but in a normal world, a government that announces in 2017 that they're going to build 100,000 houses, and then we get to 2020, they'd be out on their ass. But no, Jacinda kept us safe, so we voted for her. I don't find many people who admit to doing that who are national voters. I'm sure I'm surrounded by a lot of them, but they don't admit to it because Jacinda kept us safe. Well, really? And she should have been, that government should have been out on its ear then, just for that alone.
Yeah.
When they built what? I think in that time they ended up, in that 3-year period, built 1,400. I think that might be too many. I'm not sure. But it wasn't much.
Well, on election night, Chris Hipkins was saying that, you know, they've done some stunning things in government. They've managed to build 13,000 homes. And not a single journalist said, well, hang on a second. Aren't you 87,000 houses short of the 100,000?
Yeah.
You know?
I know. They just didn't. So it was, I just feel that 6 years that is now, thank the Lord, over. I feel that the ego and the hubris and mixed with the woke
and the incompetence
and the incapability and the lack of depth on that bench of Labour where there was no one to fill the positions. And then Kerry Allen's, you know, major misstep was just summed it up to me fantastically. I just couldn't stop laughing about that. And how they lasted 6 years, how they got in a second time, well, we do know how. But, yeah, to me it's just a nightmare that's finally that chapter's over. I'm not saying that the next one can't be nightmarish. I'm sure that we'll get delivered there's going to be some shocks when they open the books properly.
Yeah, that's what
it's not going to be it's not going to be what was presented in the preview. No. So I'm just glad this chapter is closed.
You know, I look back on the end of the Muldoon years. I remember those quite clearly. There were a lot of National Party people that voted to get rid of Muldoon. They were dancing on his grave, literally. You know, there was even jokes were being made by cabinet ministers later when he subsequently passed away that they were going to go and make sure that there was a stake through his heart so he could never come back. That's how deeply despised that he was. We saw then, of course, the Longy government, which was deeply despised as well, and we ended up with Jim Bolger, and he sort of ignominiously slipped out the back door in 1999, and we ended up with Helen Clark. And, you know, boy, we celebrated when she went in 2008. But you know what? She wasn't anywhere near as bad as this lot. No. I thought that I could see good things in every politician that I've met over the years, but I've failed to see any good things in Jacinda Ardern.
Yes, I read your classic column. I thought that was priceless about how you thought she was, evil. I think evil. You didn't hold back. But, you know, that was the first column of yours that I'd read, the first thing I'd read of yours for years. And I remember reading it and going, wow, yeah, he's right. What's happened to Cam? Wow, this is amazing. It was so well written, and I don't think there were many people that didn't, well, certainly not many people around me that disagreed with it. I thought it was very powerful.
Well, that article's been read 500,000 times.
Yeah. It's funny how the world loves her. Hey, it's funny how the world loves her, but
Well, they haven't lived with her.
Sorry?
They haven't lived with her.
No, they haven't lived with her. That's right.
No, there's a reason why she's living overseas now. Like, she can't come back here.
No.
I talked to Max Bradford at the end of the Bolger years, and he said we knew we were going to lose then, because as you walk down the street down Lambton Quay, people wouldn't stop and talk to you. They'd just keep on walking, and you became increasingly isolated. Your phone would be ringing less and all of those sorts of things. And you can always tell when you're on the way out because of that. And I've always remembered that line that he said. And then I thought to myself, imagine how many people ring Jacinda Ardern's phone. It's got to be almost nobody.
Yeah, must be, yeah. She must be at Harvard just like rubbing her hands together, just thinking, how can I destroy New Zealand further with destroying free speech? I mean,
last minute she came out and, put on TikTok or whatever it was, Instagram or whatever she does, saying, please vote for Chris Hipkins. He's a good man. I thought that's the final nail in the coffin. That's going to seal their fate.
I thought having her was dumb.
Yeah, they should never have used her. They should have actually made her persona non grata. I mean, they tried, but they kept being caught. I mean, they rolled out Helen Clark, but you know what? I actually respect Helen Clark.
Well, Helen Clark's got a brain.
Well, and ability.
Oh, really? She had a finger in every pie. She knew exactly what was going on, eh?
Yeah, I mean, I don't agree with her politics.
No.
I don't think she did anything spectacular with her time in office. In fact, the thing that she did that was most spectacular in her time in office was uniting the Labour Party and all the different factions and keeping them under control. But there's no signature thing that she did that I can recall. No. And the same as with John Key. There's nothing huge that he did.
No.
He was a competent manager of the status quo.
Yeah.
He didn't change anything.
No, he kept them tight. He kept them very tight. Yeah.
But see, Jacinda Ardern came to New Zealand politics with a whole lot of headline things that they were going to do, and then didn't do any of them.
No.
And so her record really has to be one of the worst prime ministers in New Zealand's history.
I'd have to say. I can't really think of anything either. I mean, at least when we talk about Winnie, because someone said to me the other day, "Oh, Winnie, what's he ever done?" And they were youngish. And I said, "Well, have you heard of the gold card? Because, that's a pretty good thing." And they're going, "What's that?" They might have been in their 40s. I said, "Well, you'll find out probably one day if you're lucky what he did." And, we all have that in the wine box. And there are various things that we can refer to that he's achieved. And he's never been a prime minister.
No. And he's achieved huge things that he's achieved. And if even a fraction of the MPs that have been through Parliament had achieved as much as Winston Peters has achieved, we'd be in a much better place.
Yeah.
So I hope that Christopher Luxon does get some sensible people around him that says, right, let's sit down and talk. And you know what? I don't think David Seymour will get Deputy Prime Minister.
Don't you?
I think that Christopher Luxon will want someone who is wise and been around for a while to be his deputy, not someone who's prone to silly mistakes.
Yeah. Well, it'll be interesting because he's going to fight for that. I'm pretty sure that's what he's going to go for.
Well,
we'll see.
The thing is that he painted himself into a corner. He said he can't work with Winston Peters and won't work with Winston Peters. But where else is he going to go? Is he really going to sit on the crossbenches and hold everyone to ransom? Well, that's a recipe for being destroyed at the next election.
Yeah.
So if he wants to pull that trigger, I'm saying go right ahead. Winston will be laughing and thinking, well, I'm going to get all your votes because no one's going to trust you.
Yeah, he's a bit of a weak link, actually, and Winston will be it will be watching him like a bird of prey.
Well, it's an interesting thing about you. Not many people know about Rachel is that you are into falconry.
Yes, I am.
This is to divert from politics for a little bit because I'm interested in that.
Yeah, go for it.
How many people are into falconry in New Zealand?
I think there's 9 of us with permits.
Right.
9. and I know pretty much most of them. Department of Conservation are making things pretty difficult, and it got legalised a few years ago, but we'll see if they change their mind again. But at the moment, 9, but in America, say, it's completely legal, set to stringent standards, and so I prefer to do a hell of a lot of it over there.
All right.
Yeah, so I go over there most years, but not the last few. But it's a fascinating sport, Cam, and I'd love to take you out sometime and we can chase a rabbit around and see what these birds do naturally with or without us.
Yeah, I mean, I'll take you up on that opportunity. I think that's the thing I've always admired about you is that little quirk, that cool thing that you do. Like, I'm just sitting there going, when somebody said to me, "Oh, bloody Rachel Stewart,"
yeah, they all do this.
She said this and that. I said, "Yeah, but she hunts with hawks."
So I'm absolved from anything I've ever said. Yes, a lot of people dislike me intensely, and I.
Well, too bad. Lots of people dislike me intensely.
Yeah, you're right. You're right.
I don't care. I don't care.
No, I don't care. I've got to the point where I don't care. But as an aside, just off falconry too, but back to politics, I don't know if you know this, Ken, and I don't talk about it as many people because it's so long ago, but in 1987, I stood for the Labour Party in the then Waitotoa electorate.
Oh, yes.
And Ven Young was the safest man. Yeah. Yes. And
jowly old Ven Young.
Yeah, old Ven, and I campaigned out of Hawera, but it was my home electorate because in those days it was right around rural Whanganui.
That's Audrey Young's dad.
That's right. Mm. And I lost, but got second to a guy, I can't remember his name, but he was a Democrat, usually in Waitotoa, that safe national seat. Mm. Democrats got second, but I got second this time, and I was train driving at the time. I was a train driver. And I was rolling through those areas a lot, but I took 6 weeks off because in those days you got full pay to campaign.
Yeah.
And anyway, I lost, but I didn't lose ridiculously badly. I think I did better than any other candidate before in the Labour Party. And that night when you went to concede, I went to the Hawera RSA or maybe the COSI, I can't remember, one of those clubs, to see Ven. And I walked in and he calls me over and everyone's very kind and nice, and I sit down with him and he pours me a beer and he said, "You know what's funny, Rachel?" He said, "I've always wanted to be a train driver, but you want to be a politician." And, what a nice guy. Ven Young was a great guy, actually.
Yeah, yeah.
And the reason I did that at 24 years of age was because, this is how naive you are when you're young. The nuclear-free policy I liked. Yeah. And Longy was, and these guys, the Roger Douglas era was very much about picking up that neoliberal ball and running with it. And I thought that was the direction we should be going in and taking the subsidies off farmers. And my father was not happy about me supporting that. But anyway, it was a good experience. And then I thought, they said, "Well, you get Whanganui if you do this for us." And then I thought at the end of that, I'm never going to do this again. This is horrible. And I could have had Whanganui and I could have been there. Jill Pettis ended up having it for years. And now the thought of voting Labour is the most horrible thought I can possibly imagine.
Well, from a candidate to voting New Zealand First.
Unbelievable. Never voted New Zealand First in my life. But look, I turned 60 in November last year. So
you don't look a day over 40, Rachel.
Thank you, dear. But what it gives you is a little bit of insight into, as as you age, you get a little bit of insight into the politic. And, if anyone had said to me even in 2017, in 2023, you'll be voting for Winston Peters, I would have said, "You're joking." Yeah. But the world is changing, and there was a logical, most intelligent vote, I think, for anyone to make, and I'm really glad that people like you and me could deliver him back.
Yeah, I mean, people said that I was a lock for Winston, but you know what? I wasn't really. There's a lot of things I disagree with them on, but you know what I like doing with Winston Peters is sitting down and having a chat with him and fighting my corner and having him, jab and joust and argue particular things. And then the most satisfying thing of all of that is several months later, hearing him make a speech and making the same points that I was making to him, just 3 or 4 months earlier. And that tells me that he's a politician who's willing to listen. He wants to have a discussion so he can test ideas. And if those ideas pass muster and he goes and checks things out that's been said and there's evidence supporting it, then he adopts that. And, I think that's what we should have in every politician, that ability to not to be so doctrinaire or, know-it-all. I mean, the Labour Party's appalling for this, on being know-it-alls. It's our idea, so it's the best idea. And I've found in politics, often the best ideas come out of left field, if only you'll listen to them.
Well, I went and saw River of Freedom finally. It was in Whanganui last week. I saw it last Thursday night, just before the election. And I thought, I hope they're going to show Winston walking. And there he was. And it was interesting. I was sitting in this packed house with many Maori, actually, everywhere. And they'd obviously been down to Wellington, and they were saying, there's Auntie, and there was lots of laughing. And then Jacinda came on, and there was boo, instant kind of reactions from everybody. And then Winnie came out, and they were just like, yay. And it was great. It was, and they showed him, and he was asking the questions. And I'm sure you've seen the film by now.
Yeah, I've seen the film. Yeah, I went to the premiere of it.
Oh, yeah. Very good. I was very impressed. And it made me think, I'm doing the right thing on Saturday. He went and listened to the bloody people. That's what he did. And
some people tried to get him to make a speech, and he said, I'm not here to talk, I'm here to listen.
Yeah.
And he did that. But, I think that is probably one of the most important movies that has been made in New Zealand in quite some time, because it shows how badly the media gaslit us all about the Wellington protest. And it showed a completely different side of this movement of people that had simply had enough nationwide and jumped in their cars and their trucks and their camper vans and whatever and drove to Wellington to make a point.
Yeah.
And I think
most of them were Labour and Green voters.
Yeah.
Fascinating.
That's right. And then they stood there and arrogantly said, these people don't represent us. We're not going to talk to them.
Yeah.
That's why I can't vote for the National Party, because they were part and parcel of that. That's why I couldn't have voted for the ACT Party, because they were part and parcel of that.
Same for me.
They stood there and abused their citizens by refusing to listen to them.
Yeah. Same for me. I couldn't bring myself to go national. I just couldn't do it. And I've never voted ACT, and I wouldn't have, certainly on the strength of this campaign. But I just couldn't do it. I had to do something different, and that was because I watched New Zealanders, our citizens, decent people, being told they were throwing feces, and I just found that appalling. And I remember talking. Sorry,
it was all made up.
It was all made up.
Do you remember when they said, we've seen pitchforks in the hands of protesters as weapons, so we're moving in the police? Well, whenever the police raid a gang pad or, do a drug bust or everything, they take photos and they line up all the guns and all the money and all the drugs and everything. They show, and all the weapons that they find, everything. Even a crowbar will be in the photo, right?
Yeah.
Did we see any photos of what the police found after that? Not one. Did we see any pitchforks? No.
No. It was disgusting. It was a disgusting display, and I remember thinking, I just couldn't believe what I was seeing. I was so disheartened in New Zealand and the police. I couldn't. Andrew Coster, I hope his days are gone. He's probably numbered, and I hope he is.
Well, I'm hoping that Winston's got a list, his Utu list of civil servants and people that should be rinsed, but I'm hoping that Costa is at the top of that list or somewhere near the top of that list.
Yeah, I think we'll be watching with interest and seeing what happens. Yep.
So what's your overall impression then of the election, the campaign, and the results?
It was different from anything I'd ever experienced before. I think that would be true for a lot of New Zealanders. There wasn't much heart in it, apart from, like you say, the Māori Party and Winston. I always say Winston, but I should say New Zealand first, because one day he won't be here, and that's going to be a sad day. I think it was like no other election I've ever seen. It was pretty election light. There wasn't a lot of commitment from a lot of politicians that should have been more committed. David, of course, Seymour was disappointing. I'm glad it's over. It was It was disjointed and kind of weird, really. It was a bit surreal, to be honest, the whole thing. But election night made it all just go away and dissipate. And I felt better.
You sound better.
Yeah, I'm happier.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We've got rid of the tyranny.
We have. For now, we'll see. We'll see what happens. But yes, it's like and you'll be feeling the same. This weight has just lifted off us. And that's what Jan Tonetti said, of course, about her portfolio. But for the voters, I think it's a new day, and there's a lot of people feeling pretty good. I'm sure there's a number of people feeling very bad. And, oh, my heart bleeds for you.
Yeah. I mean, that weight you're talking about that's lifting off us, that's the press of the knee and the jackboot being lifted.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
Because I felt that very strongly, and I'm sure you did too.
Oh,
I
absolutely.
felt that very strongly. And
I nicknamed Jacinda Jackboot Jacinda.
Yeah. That was awful.
But she thinks she was wonderful, and did no wrong. I mean,
no wrong.
The hubris, the arrogance, it's actually narcissistic personality disorder.
Yeah. And some of the supporters who just love her no matter what she did. Oh, and she had a baby while she was, wow, so what? Anybody can have a baby. Apparently men can have them now anyway.
Oh, apparently, yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, I just thought, well, that's okay, great. That doesn't make her a star. It doesn't make her anything. It just means she had a baby while she was in office.
Yeah, but it was all just done for headlines. And that's the most shameful thing of Jacinda Ardern's prime ministership. It was all done so that she could be the first at this, the first at that, the first to do this, the first. And in reality, she wasn't the first at anything.
No. Nope.
She didn't even come first in the election except in 2020. In 2017, when she became prime minister, she was second.
Yep. It's interesting during the election too, Cam, how much the national supporters on Twitter, and we expect that from that Hell site, but really tried to get us to distrust him. He's not to be trusted. That was just such a line.
Yeah.
So what I'm seeing happening now, and I hope we can take this into the future very clearly, is that so many people are awake to this media stuff now. Yeah. So many people now know that when they were dissing Winston and trying to take him out of the game, that it just emboldened a lot of people. It made us feel, right, this is unfair. So keep doing it, and we're just going to vote him in. Sure enough, what happened?
Well, it's like the Labour Party with their picture of Winston Peters smiling on Christopher Luxon in his pocket. And when I saw that, I thought that's exactly what I want to vote for.
Yeah. Yeah.
And looks like that's going to come true. So it's going to be very interesting.
It is. It is.
And I'll tell you what, I'm definitely going to take you up on your offer to come falconing with. I think that'll be.
Why not? Well, you ever come down this way, Cam?
Yeah, I do actually. Couple of times a year I head down that way, usually going after goats and stuff like that.
What, up the river, the Whanganui River?
Yeah, I've done that before, shooting them from a canoe. That was a bit entertaining.
Good on you.
But
we need your help.
Yeah, I mean, in Taranaki, there's just thousands of goats.
Yeah, there is
everywhere.
Everywhere up the river is. Yeah.
Yeah, I shot a wild bull once, not too many years ago, actually, where all that land is that was given to the soldiers after World War I, and then they all walked off the land. It's quite steep country up in there.
By the bridge to nowhere.
Yeah, on that sort of paper road that's there.
Yeah, Mangatapuru, I think, Mangatapuru. Yeah,
there's
nobody there. They left. Yeah,
there's nobody there, but all their cattle are there, and they're all feral. And,
they're all feral. Yeah,
they are very scary to be around. Those things, like, they come for you. They actually hunt. They actually hunt you. So,
and so you had to shoot it. Basically.
I had to shoot it. It was when I saw him and I lined him up. He was at about 50 or 60 yards. And when I finally shot him, he was at 19 and coming towards me. So,
okay.
It was my mate who was filming it. He said, "Hurry up, Cam, just shoot that thing." So
yeah. But like a bear.
Beautiful country, but there's no way you could farm it.
No, and they should never have really gone up there. It is a beautiful. I'm a Whanganui River girl, born and bred. That's where I hail from. and I just love that area. It's my favourite place on earth.
It's quite peaceful, especially around Jerusalem and places like that. It's just so peaceful. And, that's my happy space, is to be out in the bush or out in nature and living by my wits. And that's when I feel closer to God than anywhere else, doing all of that sort of stuff. So,
people don't understand hunters. And, of course, before falconry, I hunted with guns all the time. Won't so much now. But hunting is maligned and misunderstood by urban people. And it is, to me, it's getting back to nature. You're aware of everything around you. It's life and death for these animals and for us sometimes. But it is a wonderful pastime, and, it feeds us too.
Oh, that's right. I mean, that bull that I shot, we took 2 years to eat the meat out of it. I got over 500 kilos of meat.
Wow.
So, it was magnificent. It was beautiful as well.
Yes. You'll never get that at the supermarket. You never get that at the supermarket, man.
I can't eat meat from the supermarket. All the meat that I eat is meat that I've killed myself. So.
Yeah, that's the way. That's the way. Yeah,
absolutely. It's clean. It's green. It's natural. There's no additives. There's no preservatives. Nothing like that. It's just fantastic food. I
wonder if I could start up a consulting business and or some sort of training business around here and ask the Greens supporters to come on hunting trips with me. I'd love, do some falconry and come out and kill something in the bush, and let's go and stay out there for a week. Boy, that would be good for them.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know how they'd cope with not having their soy lattes, but...
Yeah, but, we'd sort something out for them.
Yeah, give them some baked beans or something like that for breakfast.
Yeah, they'll feel like steak by the end of it. But I'd just like to take some total urban people out and show them what life really is about. This is life. That's real life.
Well, that's the thing in the bush, I mean, I talk about some of the trips that I've had with people where it was really a close thing when I was walking up this track and then I slipped and went into the river. And the margins between life and death when you're in the bush are very, very slim.
Yep.
And if you haven't got your wits about you, then you become a statistic.
Yeah.
And that's what I like about it too, is that you're totally reliant on yourself and your own abilities. Yeah.
I've done a lot in the States, and of course I've done a lot of hunting with friends in the States, and we go to places like Wyoming and Texas and not just falconry, but actually hunting. And, there's always a bear or a rattlesnake to contend with. And part of me really enjoys that, because that just makes me feel exhilarated. I never know what's going to happen, I mean, we've got guns, so we're okay. But there's always something out there that can kill you in the States.
Well, that's right, from taxi drivers on.
Yes, but in New Zealand, the thing that kills you is falling down a bluff and breaking a leg and not being able to get out, and no one knows where you are. And so, interesting. It's a closer to God thing. I think you're absolutely right. I couldn't put it in a better way.
Yeah. Well, Rachel, it's been a real pleasure having you on my show this time rather than Paul's show.
Yeah.
And hopefully we'll get you back a few more times.
Yeah, I'd love to. Thank you. Appreciate
it. Maybe we should tee up some TV people to come and film us doing the falconry thing. That'd be funny.
Wouldn't it? People will just hate me even more or like me even better. Who knows? And you.
Yeah, exactly. But I think we could have some fun with that. But I'm certainly going to try and do that in the next year. Well, let's just pencil in somewhere in the next year. We'll try and work it out.
Yeah, for sure. But we'll talk before then. But yes, for sure, definitely. I have access to places up the river you could only dream of.
Oh, fantastic. Awesome. Well, I think we'll have to work on something then.
Yeah, we will.
But once again, thank you for coming on The Crunch. I've really enjoyed it.
Yeah, me too. Thanks, Cam.
I really enjoyed talking with Rachel, and I'm especially impressed that she's into falconry. And I'm going to definitely take up her offer to go and visit and learn all about it. Her take on the election was fascinating, from someone who was formerly a Labour Party candidate who now voted New Zealand First. Don't forget to send comments on Rachel's interview to inbox@realitycheck.radio or text to 2057.
This is The Crunch with Cam Slater. Conversations with a side of controversy, right here on RCR.